Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 517. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by viable human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Saturn.
Hi. Why
that-
are you laughing, Justin?
Well, we got second show energy coming into first show, and so I don't know what second show is going to look like, but I think it's going to be
It's going to be fine.
possibly a disaster.
No, it's going to be fine.
Also, we forgot to split the news between the shows.
Oh,
but that's
shit, right.
It's all okay. You're gonna do that while I talk about my week. We'll do it live. I went out of town. I went to my first tabletop role playing game and board game convention of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I try to hit 2 or 3 per year, and last year I decided it was my final year at NTRPG Con because of some bad experiences. And then I had added BGG Con to my docket, but this year it's on my daughter's birthday, so there's 2 that I previously went to out, they're just gone. So I'm struggling to find new conventions to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
So my first one of the year was down in San Marcos, that's south of Austin. And it was called Chupacabra Con.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just kind of a general tabletop
Chupa
gaming
thingy.
convention. Yeah, Chupa thingy. And it was a really good time. I had a really good time at that one. The hotel sucked on ice, but the actual convention and the convention hall and accommodations there were really great. Our first hotel room had no air conditioning.
Oh, yeah, Andrew was telling me about that.
And our second hotel room had no hot water.
Ugh.
So you just get to pick. Boiling in the room all day or freezing in the shower.
Well, couldn't you have slept in the second one and bathed in the first one?
Well, see, that's the thing is they don't let you keep both rooms.
How dare they?
He was on the phone with them for like an hour, and the guy kept coming to try to fix the AC, and then finally he went down to complain, and he heard the guy on the radio. He was like, "I'll be right back, guys," and he left for an hour. And then while Andrew was standing at the desk, he heard the guy on the radio going like, "Yeah, I'm not going back. I don't know how to fix it."
Nice.
I ran 2 games. I ran 2 games of Dungeon Crawl Classics.
I like to think that you were running in place while you were running the games.
No, I was sitting and sweating profusely. It's weird. I really love game mastering role playing games, but I also have anxiety and social anxiety.
Right.
And so it gives me a lot of anxiety, and I exhibit a lot of physical anxiety symptoms, the sweating and the restlessness and stuff like that.
Yeah, which no one will notice at a D&D con because
no,
it's
you blend right in.
Yeah, and if they'll notice anything, it'll be that you've bathed recently. Before you started sweating profusely.
So I don't think really. The thing is like, in your own head, your anxiety symptoms are way more visible than they are to anybody that would be looking at you.
Right.
But I love running games. So I ran 2 DCC games, and those were a good time. The first game, I killed 12 player characters.
Okay.
And I got a big stamp, and I get to stamp them, and it stamps a tombstone onto their character sheet, and they get to write in what killed them. So that was a good time. I like that.
Nice.
DCC starts you at 0th level.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is it's called a funnel. So you'll start with multiple adventurers. And at the end of the adventure, the ones that didn't die become level 1 adventurers. And it's just kind of a fun way to make a bunch of characters and sort of funnel them so that you get a regular party out the other end to do regular tabletop adventure stuff. And so funnels are very brutal, and nobody has any abilities the whole game. You're like, I got a pitchfork and a cow. And so it's fun to throw, farmers and stuff off of cliffs and kill them with goblins and things.
Do you ever as a DM just be like, yeah, okay, well, you survived that dragon, but also you just died of dysentery?
I don't know. I try not to have gotcha moments. I feel like I'm pretty good as a game master about not doing gotcha moments. You'd have to ask my players about that, though. I'm sure I probably have some from time to time. And there is a little bit of glee that you get from behind the screen from the gotcha moments of, aha, you didn't think of the dysentery that I mentioned 3 weeks ago,
You may have defeated the ogre, but you didn't notice he was a load-bearing ogre, and now the entire town collapsed.
Load-bearing ogre. So yeah, I ran 2 DCC games. That was a good time. I played in an X-Crawl Classics game, and then I also played in a Zero Edition Dungeons and Dragons. And I feel like I think what I've decided is I'm going to get shirts printed that say, "I know how old D&D works. Please don't explain it to me. I already know. Thank you. Do not." Because Andrew's convinced that I'm cursed to be mansplained old Dungeons and Dragons by an old white guy every single convention I go to.
Nice.
Because every convention I go to, it happens. And here's what I don't get is I signed up for a Zero Edition D&D is like the very first edition. It was like the three little booklets that came out in 1973 or 74. And then later when they codified it into the big hardcover rule books, they called it First Edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And this guy was running the original game. But you don't sign up for the game on accident. Like, it's not like we lost a bet and we were stuck at this table. Like, you show up knowing that you signed up for Zero Edition D&D. So at the very least, even if you don't know anything about it, you're going to show up already having an interest in it.
Right.
And chances are possibly even knowing a bit about it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because I think some of these old white guys just show up to these conventions just to mansplain D&D to me. And every time I want to be like, I've been playing for 26 years. I've played every edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I have run every edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I promise you don't need to tell me why this is better than the newer ones. I already know that. That's why I signed up for your game.
Have you considered not going to conventions that are explicitly labeled "convention to explain old D&D to Justin Baker"?
No, because they're the only ones running old D&D.
Oh, I see.
I want to play old D. I like the old stuff. Anyway, I did get mansplained for 4 entire hours old D&D by a guy repeatedly over and over and over and over again.
It's good. It's good. You needed it.
But the game itself was fun, which is the frustrating part. It's just like, shut up and run the game because we're all here to play the game that we signed up for, and you just want to mansplain it to us.
Right.
But yeah, that was my first convention. It was a 3-day convention, so we showed up. We showed up like midday Friday, and I ran a game. And then Saturday, I ran 4 hours of games and played in 8 hours of games. And then Sunday, I think grand total, it was 19 hours of tabletop gaming was my total by the end. Oh, and I also played Starborg, which is like Star Wars with all the serial numbers filed off. That was pretty fun. Almost forgot about that as the last one I played. But yeah, it was a good time. I do like the tabletop gaming conventions. I think the next one I go to is going to be LongCon in East Texas in November, I think.
That's a good name.
I'm
going to give
like
props for that. That's
like
good.
That one. My only concern is the leadership there is in really close with the leadership of a convention that I said I wasn't going to be going to because I have issues with the leadership. So hopefully it's just them promoting where they can promote. And it's not quite, that, but restated again. It's funny, when you go to enough conventions, you get to hear all the weird convention gossip of like all the committees that run the conventions and the fights they're having with each other. It's so intriguing. And I think what's extra exciting about it is that I have no horse in any of these races because I don't run or work at a convention.
Yeah.
So I just get to enjoy the gossip.
I got to hear some of that when I was on the Rocky Horrorcast because we would perform at All-Con and A-Con and all these.
I've heard anime conventions
and
are their
stuff.
own special brand of drama and gossip too.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And they're constantly fighing with each other. I don't know how true it is, but
and themselves. And it wasn't just the anime cons because we also did All-Con, which was the just the general pop culture con.
Yeah.
And they also had beef with the anime cons, so it was. Just drama top to bottom.
I may end up going to QuakeCon this year. Apparently, they have tabletop RPGs in a room at QuakeCon, which I did not know.
Weird.
But it's close to me in the grand scheme of, United States geography.
True.
And I believe entry to QuakeCon is free, or it was.
It's very close to me.
Go to it. Yeah. So I might hit up video games and tabletop gaming all in the same weekend. But yeah, so this was what I did. I was gone for 3 days and drove for 8 hours and, did that whole thing. How are you? How do Saturn? What did you do?
Well, we forgot to mention in housekeeping, but I have a whole new audio setup now.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we finally got you on a big boy audio setup.
Yeah.
You were the only one of us still recording. Well, no, Guy records to a computer. But the only primary podcast, co-host that was still recording to a computer.
Yeah.
And it was causing us issues. So
we were having more issues lately, and I don't know why. I still don't know why, and I'm upset that I don't know why, because I do computers sometimes.
Well, here's the thing. I've been recording for, a while now. And while I don't know basically anything about audio or recording or podcasts or running a podcast or hosting a podcast or writing notes or researching a podcast, what I do know is that computers fucking suck at recording live audio. They just are fucking terrible. I don't know why. Yeah. They're awful at it. Multiple machines, multiple operating systems. I've always had issues recording live to a computer.
It makes no sense.
So people ask us all the time. We record to Zooms, specifically the H4Ns, which are just a dedicated XLR recording interface.
Well, now we do. Before,
now we do.
Did.
Now we do. Andrew has for a while, and when you recorded here, that's what we recorded to before we went remote when COVID hit, So you now got your big fancy.
In the before times.
Big boy setup, and you don't got to worry about your computer borking shit. I did also want. I felt bad because you're always like, well, I was trying to do something with this computer, but I'm worried I'm going to mess up my recording setup, and I was like, I feel bad that you're kind of locked into shit on a computer that you want to work on. So that's nice that you can, slap FreeBSD on there now.
Yay!
And just have nothing work.
Yeah, that's how FreeBSD works.
No, it all works eventually for a minute, and then it crashes. I love FreeBSD. But man, it's an ordeal.
So long as you don't want to install any software, you are set.
You set aside a whole afternoon to merge your ports tree, and you just wait.
Yep. for when Gentoo is too easy for you.
I love Gentoo also. I love them both. I love them both.
So so I finished the first Lunar game on the Lunar Remaster.
Yes. So recommend, don't recommend, yes, no?
Yeah, I do recommend the remaster as far as if you're wanting to play those games. I think that it is probably the best way to play them currently.
Sure. Okay.
I will say, having not replayed the game in 20 years at least, the translation has aged, and it is.
Oh, okay.
And it's not like inappropriate levels of bad, but it's definitely immature. Like it consistently feels like it is late 90s teenage boy humor.
I mean, for the game, for the time, that's super duper tracks, but I can see how it would feel different in 2025.
And there are a lot of points where there is extra emphasis on, she's got boobies. And I can't tell if it is just the regular Japan anime obsession with boobies or if it is the localization's obsession with boobies. But it is all there all at once, and it kind of overlaps into a kind of embarrassing level at times.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can push yourself past that level of embarrassment, it's still really good games. Like, I feel like they've aged better than I remembered as far as the actual gameplay is concerned, and that might be because it doesn't have working designs tweaks to it to make it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
But so as far as the gameplay itself goes, really enjoyed it. The translation, a little uncomfortable at times. But still good.
But still, I mean, for what it's worth, I imagine faithful to the original game.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They did apparently censor some things from the PS1 translation, either things that were really dated pop culture references or were just not acceptable by today's terms.
Yeah, I could see
but
it.
Not much.
I can see it. Yeah.
Other than that, picked up a game called Calculate It on Steam, which
I saw that on your thing and I thought it said calculator. And I was like, that is just playing with a calculator?
So it is Balatro, but instead of cards, you're given a calculator.
Okay.
And basically it's
the difference here, Saturn, is that Balatro is emulating poker, which is a game. Calculators are not a game. Whereas this is emulating
people who are bored and only have a calculator in front of them.
I have to look this up while you describe it.
So basically, the way that it works is you are given a random number on your calculator and a target number, and you have to reach the target number using the keys on your calculator, but each key on your calculator has a limited number of charges.
Oh.
And at the end of each round, you're given a shop, like in Balatro, where you can purchase keys, and sometimes it'll be keys you already have, and it'll just recharge them. But other times it's keys that aren't on your calculator, but would be on like a scientific calculator or a programming calculator or whatever. And other times it's keys that don't exist on calculators. They're absolutely useless when it comes to math, but they are useful for this game. And
this does look really cute.
It is really cute,
wish list.
But it is not balanced. It is not a game that they have put enough balance testing in yet. And I'm hoping that they continue to do so because it has a lot of potential. I am really excited to see where this game is in like a year and a half, 2 years. I think that it has the potential to be a really neat Balatro-like game. But right now, it's not there. It is imbalanced to the point to where most of the runs are not anything that you could attempt to complete. And the additional calculators that you can unlock and everything are all really like clever, but not very useful. I'm curious how it goes. As of right now, it feels a little broken, and it's very luck based.
So let's check it. It is early access, so credit where credit's due. They didn't just release a broken game. Right. But it looks like it's been in early access for almost a year.
Yes. And also when I was trying to look up information about the game, as I was considering buying it, I found one of the threads on its Steam forum was somebody saying, hey, just so you know, there's another game that came out like 10 years ago that also has this exact same name and a similar premise. And you want to make sure you don't get any IP strikes.
Sure.
And the author responded to it with, yeah, I saw that. Don't care. And that's a little worrying too. So
indie devs.
Yep.
Don't care till that C&D shows up.
Yeah. And then the other game that I've been playing is Drop Duchy. And this one is not broken. It is a lot of fun. So Drop Duchy is Slay the Spire by way of Carcassonne by way of Tetris.
Oh man, I like all of those games.
Yes.
All three best in class for me.
So it's like as far as like progression through the game is very similar to Slay the Spire, where you have like the map that you choose which path you want to go, and sometimes it'll be a randomized thing or a boon or a benefit. Sometimes it'll be a combat or whatever. But the actual combat and exploration is all done by way of Tetris. And all of your Tetris
the amount
pieces.
of games I add to my wish list while we are actively recording is absurd. I think 80% of my games on my wish list are at this exact moment. Where I'm like, tell me more.
So the exploration and combat is Tetris, but each Tetris piece is either a terrain or a military unit or a resource unit.
You have to Carcassonne them together.
Exactly, but you're doing it in way of Tetris.
Yes.
So you're dropping Tetris pieces of Carcassonne pieces, and if you make a full line, it is considered full exploration. And so every unit on that line, whether it is a resource you would have access to or not, you get that resource now. But also, there's enemy units that are put into your Tetris pieces, and you have to be careful about where you put the enemy units because you may be boosting their units. And then once you have filled the Tetris board up to the top, you then have to combat your units versus the enemy units and hope that you have placed everything in such a way that you have more units than they have units, or that your units are more boosted than their units are.
Yeah.
So it's I have found that by the end of every round, I am in like my brain has twisted itself into a knot to try to form the correct board. And then as soon as it's all placed out, I'm like, oh, I fucked up all of this. What did I do?
Am I an idiot?
Yeah. Every round, I'm like, oh God, I am an idiot.
Like every good puzzle game at some point, if you're not stopping and going, am I a moron and I just don't know it? It's not a very good puzzle game. You got to really question your intelligence.
Yeah. Because it's a combination of puzzle game and strategy game. And the two of them are fighting with each other the whole time that you're playing the Tetris, where you're like, I want to form the strategy, but I also need to form the puzzle. And then once the puzzle is done and you're forced with just the strategy, you're like, oh, I fucked up. I puzzled more than I should have strategied. And it's neat. It's a really neat game. Highly recommended. Yeah. I've already put many hours into it, and it has quickly become my waste time at work game. And it's very good.
I was looking at the reviews for it, and one of the negative reviews says, I got all the achievements in 20 hours. Now I'm bored. I'm like, it's a $15 game. How many hours do you think you're going to get out of it? Like, it's
I got to say, I am picking up achievements at a breakneck pace because there are a shitload of them.
Yeah.
But I'm not unlocking things at a breakneck pace. Like the actual unlocking of new content or new factions or new buildings, that's taken me forever just because the game is tough. It is tough to wrap your brain around all of it.
Yeah.
But it is very good.
Let's do some news.
Okay.
First up, also it's worth mentioning. Saturn did put a note in here. We are right before E3 season, which doesn't exist, but still we live within its shadow. So a lot of companies are holding on to things. I imagine also with the Switch 2 just now coming out at time of recording, other companies are holding on to stuff because of that.
I heard someone refer to this new fake E3 season as Key 3 season since it's all hosted by Jeff Keighley.
Oh, yay. My favorite person.
Yep.
So, there's just not a lot going on. It's just a kind of Switch 2 vibes, and everyone's just sort of sitting on their stuff, waiting to announce summer things. And we got summer games, whatever what is it? Summer Game Fest? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Keighley's thing. Yeah,
that's Jeff Keighley's thing. Is going to come out and tell us, you know what annoys me? At least come out and announce something good, like Doritos 3D are coming back.
No, he's gonna come out and tell us that he and his life partner Hideo Kojima are gonna make a new flavor of Mountain Dew.
His close and personal friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, first up, Capcom says they're upsizing their workforce by at least 100 employees annually. So running in the opposite direction of the rest of the industry.
Right? Good for them.
Granted, they've had some pretty big successes as of late. Right? I think Street Fighter's still doing really strong numbers. Yeah. Monster Hunter's doing really strong numbers. Resident Evil exists. Done really well. They seem to be enjoyed greatly. And they seem to be constantly putting out collections of all their retro stuff. And I mean, they've been on the ball.
Can't make a new Mega Man game to save their lives.
They made them all. They made 12 of them. That was their creative
11.
Vision. Was it 11? There was no 12?
Yeah, 11 is the most recent one.
Oh, yeah, 11 was the one. I was thinking it was 12. Oh, so yeah, the 11 was their creative vision.
Yeah.
And so when the first game came out, when Keiji Inafune single-handedly and only he made Mega Man, that's when he was like, this will be 11 games.
Yeah, but if you search for Mega Man 12 on the internet, you'll find several clickbait websites telling you that they can show you everything there is to know about it.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
New Dragon Quest 1 and 2 remaster footage shows some more changes to the original two games. I'm excited for this. I'm going to pick this up. Yeah. The first two games are just a little too rough for me. 3 is kind of where the series starts for me, so I'm excited to play these versions.
I still love the first game in its original form. I love it more in its upgraded forms just because they're a little faster paced. But,
sure.
I am curious how this is going to work because they've shown at least one screenshot that shows you fighting multiple enemies at once in the first game, which was never a thing you could do originally. And that would have to drastically change the balance of the game. So I'm curious how they're handling it. Also, they showed the hero from Dragon Quest 1 fighting enemies that aren't in the first game.
Very interesting.
I'm curious how big of a change, especially the first game, is going to be. And of course, the second game, they're introducing a whole new playable character that wasn't in the original game. So I am very curious to see how drastic of a change these are from their originals.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be interesting. I'm stoked. I think it's gonna be a good time.
Same here.
I still haven't played the 3 remake. It's still sitting in the shrink next to Romancing Saga 2. All these games I'm going to play.
3 just got a big content update recently.
What did they add?
Well, the best thing they added was now the flight speed is actually fast and not slow as shit.
Good job, Square Enix.
But no, it was mostly just like bug fixes and tweaks and stuff. Wasn't any major new content.
Doom: The Dark Ages reportedly sold less than 1 million units, though 2.2 plus million players have played the game on Game Pass. I'm not one of them. I haven't picked it up yet. I'm waiting for them to actually release the game physically, or at least
if they did that,
or at least on GOG, and then I will get it. I don't want a download stub on a disc. I want the game, please and thank you. I will buy it, but you have to release it. Yeah. I hear it's good. It just doesn't seem to have made the splash that Eternal made, at least not at launch. But that could just be because I'm not paying attention to that corner of gaming right now. Maybe it's all the hot new thing.
Yeah.
Front Mission 3 Remake finally has a release date of June 26th on Switch. Other consoles to be determined.
That's super soon, too.
It is. That's very soon.
As the time of recording, it's currently the 5th of June, so that's this month. But that is exciting. Front Mission 3 was great. I played a ton of Front Mission 3 on PS1.
Best Buy will begin carrying Anbernic consoles via their website. This isn't shocking to me. They've been kind of down this trajectory of sort of like I don't even know what to call companies like Anbernic and 8BitDo and stuff, because they carry 8BitDo stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're third parties, but they're like, in my head, I want to call them like indie third party hardware developers or something. Yeah. It's just kind of a category we sort of, I don't know. I feel like we used to have, and then it sort of went away.
These companies that started by pitching almost entirely to hobbyists and have moved into mainstream retail, which is exciting. I'm all for it.
It's basically they've filled that third-party hardware niche that companies like Mad Catz and Nyko used to fill, and they kind of went away, and we've just not had it for a while, and now it's sort of coming back, and it's all these direct from China and Hong Kong companies that are putting this hardware out. I don't know. I think it's cool. I like it. Yeah. I like Anbernic stuff. I like 8BitDo stuff. I want to see more. Like, at the end of the day, I want to see more of the good hobbyist stuff that you're releasing available for sale at retailers near me. Like, that's what I want.
I'm much happier to see 8BitDo at stores than I am PowerA.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my God. Randy Pitchford walked back his previous statements in a 557-word post that didn't really explain what he possibly could have meant when he said that real fans of Borderlands 4 will figure out how to make $80 work. At this point, honestly, I think he just wants us talking about him.
His new statement was like, "What I meant to say was the price really isn't under my control." And how
isn't he the CEO
what you say
of the company?
Mean to say that? Well, no, he's the CEO of a division of a company.
I see. Yeah. All right.
His studio is just development, not publishing, so he doesn't determine prices.
At the end of the day, I think he's just saying shit to get people saying the word Borderlands. Right. I mean, that's it at the end of the day.
Yeah, he wants all the Borderlands news to be about him and not about that movie that flopped so hard.
Yeah. Game Informer is now offering digital access to their back catalog to subscribers. I thought they shut down. How are we still subscribing to this?
No, they came back. We talked about it on the news like a month or so ago.
Did they come back? I guess I forgot.
They came back. Several of the editors of Game Informer bought back the rights to Game Informer from GameStop and have started as an independent, quote-unquote, journalist company.
In other words, Game Informer might actually start being a good magazine now? Is that what we're saying?
We'll see. I'm not sure. We'll see how heavily advertised they are.
Yeah, that's true. Someone in the chat was like, when y'all do read-along, which Patreon plug, we do read-along. It's a fun time. Which was supposed to go out today, and I just realized I forgot to do it. I'll have to do it later. But when they were like, you should read the first issue of Game Informer, and I was like, I don't think you understand how much of an advertisement it is.
Also, we did.
Did we do Game Informer 1?
We did Game Informer 1, and it was so short that we had to add additional issues in just to fill the time.
It was literally just an ad.
Yeah, because it was like a 12-page ad for what is available now at GameStop or Funko Land. Yeah. And then after we got through that, we were like, all right, we need to add some more. So we jumped ahead a year or two to read a Game Informer. And we're like, no, it's still kind of ad read.
Yeah, it's a rough time. Yeah. Dragon Quest XI S is now the highest selling game in the franchise at 8.5 million units sold. I don't find that shocking. It's exciting though.
But that is a pretty low number for most franchises.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if this was a Resident Evil, Capcom would have been like, I guess we're going to do bankruptcy. I don't know what it is. But good to hear.
You guys want to do a bankruptcy?
Yeah, we're going to go do a bankruptcy.
I did a bankruptcy in my pants.
Microsoft is reportedly waylaying their bespoke handheld unit in favor of Windows 11 gaming handhelds, at least temporarily, because fuck things that work good and people like. Well, here's Windows 11.
Yeah, they have been trying to push Windows 11 as a handheld gaming environment. And we'll see if they actually ever turn it into that, because they sure haven't yet. But we'll see. We'll see if they can make that happen.
I'm fine with Windows 11. I like Windows 11. Quit fucking jamming Copilot into it.
Right.
Stop. Windows 11 was fine. It worked fine.
Yeah, at launch, it was great. It even had Windows Subsystem for Android, which was really neat, and that's dead now.
Please stop taking things away. And I'm staring at a Copilot button right now in Word. Get it out of here. I don't want it. Word was already smarter than me grammatically. I don't need it to also like have suggestions about how I'm writing stupid shit because I'm an
Right.
idiot.
Yeah.
Sega has removed multiple games from mobile marketplaces, which sucks. That sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Somebody showed a screenshot of the version of Crazy Taxi for mobile, which you can't buy anymore.
Yeah.
But if you already own it and you try to start it, it just tells you that it can't communicate with its online servers and will try to play offline, but it apparently loses a bunch of its content when you play it offline.
Thanks, Sega. Didn't they pull Crazy Taxi off Steam too? Along with a couple games, didn't they pull like Space Channel 5 and Crazy Taxi and a couple others?
I know they pulled a lot of their classics. I can't remember if they pulled the Dreamcast era games.
Yeah. Upsetting.
Yeah.
Finally, Evercade and Taito have announced 2 Evercade carts and a bar top arcade. So cool stuff coming from Evercade. I don't know. I flip flop on Evercade. I don't love the quality of their stuff. I don't think it's really for the hobbyist, like we were talking about earlier. I think it's more kind of general purpose stuff of like, hey, remember these old arcade games? But like, I have a couple of their things, and they're neat. Yeah. They're not like the most incredible thing ever, but I think it's a cool way to keep some of these games out there and on cartridges, which is a cool thing.
And I'm all for more ways to play Bubble Bobble. So this is fine.
Sure. Which brings us to our topic at hand, which is Final Fantasy Adventure.
Oh, sorry.
Final Fantasy Adventure, continuing the Game Boy saga that I've forced us onto for the last 3-4 recording sessions. I don't know. It's been a lot of Game Boy.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Doing a lot of Game Boy. I'm so happy. I've never been so happy. It's great. Synopsis: not quite Final Fantasy, not quite mana. You got your mana in my Final Fantasy.
Oh no, you got your Final Fantasy in my mana.
Oh no, 2 great tastes that need better inventory systems. This was developed and published by Square. European release was published by Nintendo. There was a 1998 North American reprint by Sunsoft, just like the Final Fantasy Legend games.
Right.
It came out
on Final Fantasy VII at that point.
Right. It came out on the original Game Boy, released in Japan 28th of June 1991 as Seiken Densetsu Final Fantasy Gaiden. North America in November of 91 as Final Fantasy Adventure, and in European territories, confusingly, as Mystic Quest in June of 93, which just makes it all even weirder.
Yes. And also that's a real late date too.
Oh yeah, 93. 93, yeah. And there was of course the Switch version in the Collection of Mana, which came out in Japan in 2017, worldwide 2019. Which I feel like we talked about on the show a little bit when it came out, because I know I picked it up and then didn't put any time into it. As far as first encounters, this one was kind of on my short list when I was a young teen, like 12, 13, 14, in the early aughts. And at the time, we had just gotten high-speed internet around like 01, 02-ish.
Yeah.
And I found out that video game stores have websites and I can go to them and I don't got to get on the dial-up. I can just, whenever I want, go browse GameStop's website. And I started kind of browsing through back catalog of Game Boy stuff because there was no, I didn't have Wikipedia yet.
Right.
I mean, I guess GameFAQs existed, but I may or may not have known about it. And so the way I would browse like old games and see stuff that I missed or never knew about was just sort of by window shopping.
Yeah. I had many other ways than going to the GameStop website.
I was a young
private
boy.
Forums and...
Yeah, if I was a little older, I maybe would have known, but I had no idea. And of course, this was still early days for the internet, where like if you didn't know a website was there, like there was nothing to tell you it existed.
Yeah, you'd go to Alta Vista.
You got to go. Yeah, you go search for it. And you got to find it, and then if it's a forum, it's confusing. It's a bunch of people talking. And I don't really know what's going on.
The Yahoo or AOL directory of the internet, and you just look for video game, and then you look for hobbyist.
No, it was instant messaging, chat rooms, and GameStop's website for me.
Internet for me was pre-instant messaging. I never really instant messaging.
No, instant messaging was when I jumped on board. I did IRC. I did a little bit of IRC before that, but when AIM and Yahoo Instant Messenger hit, I was like, this is the shit. This is it for me.
No, I never used those.
Anyway, I would sit and I would stare at these Final Fantasy games because I had just learned of Final Fantasy, a few years previously with Final Fantasy VII. And I was like, man, Final Fantasy on the Game Boy, that's incredible. And I didn't know that none of them were actually Final Fantasy games.
Right. This one was kind of Final Fantasy.
Ish, I guess.
Yeah.
And I never
Final
picked it up.
Fantasy adjacent.
I opted for. I eventually ended up getting because I had Final Fantasy Legend 3, which is a weird one to start on, and I think I eventually picked up Legend 2, and I never got Adventure. I just assumed it was the first game. I thought it was Adventure, Legend, Legend 2, Legend 3, because they all say Final Fantasy, and that's them in alphabetical order. Why wouldn't that be the case?
Yeah, and Legend 3 was at least closer to Final Fantasy than any of the other Saga
That's
games
true.
are.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway, so yeah, I never played this back in the day. I think I probably have booted it up once or twice, but I've never sat and put time into it. This was my first real try.
Yeah,
what about you?
I'd played Secret of Mana first.
Sure.
And then I picked this up late. In fact, when I played Secret of Mana, I don't even remember if I had a Game Boy yet. I think I didn't get the Game Boy until after that. And we didn't start picking up the mobile Final Fantasy games until a couple of years after that. So when I did play it, I had already played Secret of Mana, and I did notice there were some similarities. There were some reused elements, but I had no idea that it was the same series. It's just that Square was real lazy at the time and constantly reused things between games of different series. So I just assumed it was more of that.
Yeah.
I just assumed this was the weird Final Fantasy that didn't have a combat system.
Yeah.
And then once the internet became a thing, it was like 96, 97 is when I started, really looking up information about video games online.
Sure.
Is when I realized that this was the game before Secret of Mana.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to see it in the light that it is.
Yeah. Let's talk presentation.
Okay.
I really like how this game looks a lot. Granted, I like Game Boy. I like how Game Boy games look. I played this whole game start to finish with the green filter on my analog pocket. Like I like it.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty good looking game, especially for, Game Boy's 89, so we're within the first couple years of Game Boy. And I would say this is sort of timeline wise right at the beginning of companies starting to be like, hey, our games can be more than just basically Tiger Electronic handheld games on a Game Boy.
Yeah, when they were first getting away from just arcadey style adventures on Game Boy.
Yeah, this was the MBC2 cart, I believe, and they were just starting to break out of it. And so this is a good looking game, especially compared to other Game Boy games. The sprites are a decent size. It also uses Final Fantasy sprites for a lot, which makes sense because it's Final Fantasy, but I guess I just wasn't expecting it.
Right.
But it does make the game very cute. You get like ninja and black mage enemies, which is cool. And then it started a trend that the Mana series kind of continued, which is that enemies in general are just cute.
Yeah, they're pretty adorable.
Like, a lot of them are very... My favorite is the one that is a little mirror and it shoots a guy at you.
Yeah.
Like a dude comes shooting out of it.
Yeah,
and he smashed. I'm like, I think it's supposed to be your reflection. It's shooting at you.
I think it's supposed to be, yeah.
But the reflection looks fucking terrified to be there.
I would like to say, as we talk about how good it looks on Game Boy, that when I was playing the game for this episode, I chose to play the game the way it was meant to be played, which is the mobile port on an Android TV using a Stadia controller.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's actually a pretty good port. I was pretty impressed.
It looks good. It definitely. I was. You sent me a screenshot, and I was kind of disappointed that I didn't make it into the collection, the Mana collection, because it looks like a good version.
Yeah, same.
I did want to notate. You said boobies earlier, and it reminded me.
Oh yeah.
I was in a cutscene in the game, and I'm sitting there, and I'm playing it on my dock on my analog pocket, so it's on my big 70-inch television. This green on green Game Boy game.
Yeah, the way it was meant to be played.
And my wife's sitting in a chair, and this character's talking to me, and she's profile, like sideways. And I leaned in close to look, and I only noticed because it was on my big old TV. And I lean in, and I go, Courtney, look, they put a little tiny boobie on this little tiny Game Boy sprite. And she had like a little boob sticking out. And we laughed for a long time about the tiny little Game Boy boobie that they had to add.
They had to utilize one sprite of their 20 by 20 screen.
It was 1 pixel out, 2 pixels high, and I was like, look, a tiny Game Boy boobie. The music in this game is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, really excellent music.
Awesome. I really love the town themes.
Mhm.
It is absolutely fantastic. Granted, I love the Game Boy sound chip, Game Boy
Yeah.
sounds in general, Game Boy soundtracks. This is a really good one.
Oh yeah.
I've been doing the music thing, so I went searching for sheet music for some of the songs
Mhm.
that I enjoyed, and absolutely could not find them. Ended up going down a
That's a
rabbit
shame.
hole of trying to. I don't have the skills to do it, but trying to transcribe the music, cannot do that. Then I
Yeah,
tried to get software to do it.
there was software from back in the day, from back in the 90s, that could convert a MIDI into sheet music. And I know that there's tons of MIDI conversions of this music. So that's probably the easiest way to do
Yeah,
it.
what I ended up doing was recording it and then trying to convert it to MIDI in my software that I use.
No,
And
just
it
go
got
to RP Gamer. They've already got all the MIDIs from this, like
well,
direct one-to-one transposed MIDI.
I eventually finally just found the sheet music somewhere.
Okay,
Someone
good.
on some random blog from the early 1.0 internet,
Right.
still paying their web hosting, just had
Nope.
it floating around there.
Yeah, if you're looking for any MIDIs of 8-bit or 16-bit RPGs, RP Gamer at one point had full archives of direct transposed MIDIs of
Yeah, I
every.
didn't even think about that because I can load MIDI directly into my software, so it didn't even occur to me.
Yep.
Um,
Back in the early days before we had MP3s on the internet, we all anxiously downloaded MIDIs and mod files of all of
Yeah.
our favorite game music.
let's talk gameplay.
Okay.
Uh,
Which is going to be the bulk of this episode. Everything else is going to be in the next episode.
To be clear,
by the
this
way.
is the spoiler-free episode. We forgot to mention it at the top of the show and when we
Uh,
started the thing. But yeah, this is the spoiler-free version.
Yeah.
Next episode is going to be all development and story. This is an action RPG. I really like the gameplay in this. So for
Yeah.
people that never played a mana game, all the mana games, as far as I know, the mainline ones anyway, do this same thing, which is not attacking, charges your attack meter on the bottom of the screen. And when fully charged, depending on the weapon, you'll do a special attack.
Right.
But the higher
That-
the bar is in general, the more damage you do.
Yeah.
And so this creates a really cool dynamic where you're kind of encouraged to save your attacks to deal more damage.
Now, granted, early in the game, it takes forever for that bar to
yeah,
charge.
it's so slow that you kind of forget you even have it. You're just smashing stuff.
Yeah, it's basically useless early in the game, and then by the time you get to the end of the game, it charges fast enough that you can pretty consistently let it charge at least halfway.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the later, especially once you get to Secret of Mana, instead of it being you can optionally wait for it to charge up, it was you can optionally attack before it charges. Because if you attack before it charges in Secret of Mana, you've wasted an attack.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
virtually no damage.
I like this version better where you can choose to, because there are sometimes moments where you're like, I'm just going to wail on this dude.
Right.
And you get to tactically, mentally make that trade off of I'm going to do less damage, but I'm going to hit him like 10 times because I see a good
Because
opportunity.
you can juggle him.
Or sometimes you see an opportunity and you have to play reserved because you're like, I really need to deal max damage with these. And it creates this kind of balancing, this risk reward system that I find very engaging in the game.
Yeah.
So even though the combat itself is pretty simple, and just sort of top down action RPG, I want to say Zelda like that.
Right.
There's not a ton there. This just one little thing does add just enough to the combat system for me anyway.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the item.
Yeah.
In inventory system. Because
it's shit.
This game relies heavily on you constantly swapping, using, trashing, and finding new inventory items. Almost everything in the game is limited. There's a couple of like single-use keys, I think like literally 2, that don't go away after you use them, but then you got to throw them away anyway to make room in your inventory.
Right.
Your inventory is pretty limited, and you pick up...
at least on this the remake that I was playing, there's one key that you can't sell or throw away. It's just this the bone key, the skeleton
bone key. Yeah.
And you're just stuck with it in your inventory the rest of the game.
I was able to delete it. I could just keep going to the guy and getting more bone keys. You get as many as you wanted in the Game Boy version. You get 10 of them.
In the remake, it just doesn't let you drop it. It's like, this is permanently in your inventory. That's one slot now. Enjoy.
So I like the reliance on items of the game. I like that you are getting and using a lot of items a lot of the time. Right. It makes the game feel really dynamic.
Yeah.
But the Game Boy's pretty slow. The menus are pretty slow, and getting into it's pretty slow. And also, this is the dumbest complaint, but the menus don't scroll.
Mhm.
So if you go to the top of the menu and push up, you don't flip to the bottom of the
Right.
menu. You have to
You
go
have
back
to
down.
manually go all the way down.
So it sounds silly, but like if you open the
Right.
menu and go
It
the
adds
wrong
up.
direction, you've wasted half a second, you know, and
Right.
then yeah, over the course of 10, 12, 15 hours, it does add up.
Yeah.
Also, and we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit a few other times, but the game's broken. So keys are consumable, much like Zelda. Really, I think this
Yeah.
game took a lot of inspiration from The
It
Legend of
definitely
Zelda.
did, yeah.
Um,
I just want to say, if we're going to talk keys, we have to also talk Maddox, because keys and Maddox are your main
Yeah.
consumables, and they're going to fill up most of your inventory for most of the game.
Maddox break down walls
Mhm.
or rocks. Keys open doors. My
Yeah.
problem is that there is a section of the game that you can get soft locked between two
There's a few
locked.
sections.
I only found one, but I was in Dark Lord's castle and I got soft locked between two locked doors.
Yeah.
And usually, what they do in the game, they'll leave enemies that drop keys. So throughout these dungeons, they pepper these rooms with low level enemies. And at first, you're like, "What the fuck is this?" They're the enemies that drop keys and Maddox, which are like
Yeah.
pickaxes to
Right.
get through the dungeons. And I soft locked myself between two doors, and there was no skeletons to drop any keys, and I had to use a Game Genie to cheat my way out of it.
Which is how I
Um,
played the game originally back in the day, was with a Game
Yeah.
Genie to occasionally cheat my way through.
Oh, I can tell you used a Game Genie because your level was stupidly high. I was like, Saturn was doing some crazy stuff.
Well, in
I
my
think-
current playthrough, I didn't use a Game Genie, but
Yeah, well, I have. I think mine.
Oh, yeah, my
is
old
your
save file.
original cartridge.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and so I
Yeah.
still have your guy named Link, who's
Yeah,
level
yeah.
70 something,
yeah, that's definitely my Game Genie playthrough.
which is like 35 levels higher than I completed the game at.
yeah, that's about right.
So you know. But yeah, the inventory system, it's a cool idea. I like how it's implemented. I don't like how it's executed. Like I like
Yeah.
the idea of you're always using stuff and getting stuff. It gets rid of that whole RPG thing of like, I want to save these items. Like there's
Right.
nothing to save. Use the shit if you got it. You're gonna
Yeah.
need it.
And also, while we're complaining about the keys, I also want to complain about the fact that you can't really tell if a door is going to need a key until you walk into it.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Also, doors will reset. So if you go too
Yep.
far away, and they'll reset, and then you have to come back and use another key. So if you're lost in a dungeon
Mhm.
and you're not following a guide, it's real easy to run out of keys going back and forth through locked
Yep.
doors because you're not sure where to go.
Right.
I do want to
So use
mention
maps.
yes. The game came with a map too, so don't
Yeah.
feel bad about at the very least an overworld map,
Exactly.
but dungeon maps are useful too. The dungeons aren't too incredibly complex in this game.
I thought it came with some of the dungeon maps too.
That I don't know. I
don't
know it came with the overworld map. It might have come with more than that.
Yeah, I think it was a two-sided, and on the other side was some of the
Oh
dungeon.
yeah. I do want to mention kind of general world traversal because for a 1991 Game Boy game, the scope of the overworld they put in this is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there are few games on the original Game Boy at all that are this large of a world to explore,
Yeah. Outside
And
of the
it's-
Zelda games.
especially in 1991. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
mean, maybe Final Fantasy Legend 3. I don't remember how big the world was in Legend 2. Legend 1 was a tiny game.
Well, Legend
Um,
2 had a bunch of tiny overworlds. But you had
Is
the
that what it
110
was?
floor tower, and
It's
they would
true.
occasionally have overworlds you'd dump into.
But this is a big overworld, and
Yeah.
it's so impressive to see it. But you definitely feel the limitations, especially in the late game.
Yeah.
Because the density of the world, to fit it in such a small space, it's extremely
Right.
dense, and that means
yeah.
traversing the world is really cumbersome. There are no wide open spaces. Everything is
Right.
tiny, cramped corridors that you're
Yep.
kind of noodling through the world to get to places. And in the last half of the game, you can tell they were like, shit, we've run out of areas to put these places. So you're running back and forth across these weird noodly paths through the overworld that are really easy
Especially
to
in
get
that
turned around.
corner where you have to go between the different corners of the world to get to that one place.
Yeah. I like it. Again, it's tough. It's just like the inventory thing where like, it's so impressive that they did this for a Game Boy
Right.
game. But also it definitely feels cramped and noodly
yeah.
and weird.
Yeah, and also because you're constantly having to, as we're going to talk about in a minute, use the different weapons to clear paths in the overworld. And if you go slightly too far, those like trees regrow and shit.
Yes,
so you have to
you gotta go
re-equip
back.
the weapon to get back through there and everything. But
Let's talk weapons. There are multiple weapons, and some of them do different things. Now, each of these
Mhm.
weapon categories we're going to list, there's I think the only one that doesn't have multiple is the star is the only one that you just get one
Star?
of. Yeah, the thing that can break walls, the mace.
Oh yeah, the mace.
I think
Yeah.
you only get one, but I think all the rest of them you get multiple of these. So you have swords, which are it's a sword. It looks a lot like Link's sword and operates a lot like Link's sword. It does have 2 different attacks though.
Mhm.
If you're holding forward and you press attack, you attack straight, just like
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda. But if you stand still, it's like a wide
You do
arcing
your spinny.
swing, which is just just a tiny little tactics tweak that adds some
Right.
complexity. There's axes that can chop down trees and thorns. You get a sickle, which is for clearing plants.
Yeah.
You get a flail/whip that you can use to kind of hook shot across gaps.
Yeah.
You get a spear, which doesn't do anything special, but the fully charged spear does shoot out from you like a sword beam, which is pretty cool. The mace is basically just a reusable mattock, which
So nice.
it makes the game a lot easier. It basically frees up half your inventory.
Oh yeah. And it does pretty good damage.
Oh yeah, it's great. I use it straight up through the end game because sometimes I just leave it on in an area where
Yep.
there's like when you're doing the floating rocks zone. I just left it on.
It, honestly, as neat as most of these weapons are, as soon as I get the whip or the mace, that's pretty much all I use for the rest of the game, just because of the range makes them so useful.
I used the blood sword a lot in a few zones where the enemies were
It's true.
particularly difficult, and I did because
it does heal you up.
Yeah, it's like a vampire sword, so that was cool.
Yeah.
So in the game, the enemies are kind of classified into 2 types. There's a lot of different sprites, but some enemies are damaged by any regular melee attack. Some
Right.
enemies are only damaged by magic.
Right.
But then there's this kind of there's kind of 3 categories. There's your regular enemies. There's enemies that are only damaged by magic or a magic weapon.
And then
So,
there's
like-
certain enemies that are only hurt by certain types of weapons. Like
Yeah.
they're some of them are hurt by whips, but not swords, for example.
Yeah. And so I couldn't quite figure. I'm sure I could have looked it up, but I enjoyed the journey of figuring it out.
Yeah, I want to say there was a chart that came with the game that told you some of the weaknesses at least. Or strengths.
but it does mean that like the items in the game, you're not only encouraged but forced to be constantly changing gear
Right.
all the time. Which that's really cool.
Or ignoring enemies.
Or ignoring enemies, especially in like the kind of the Final Fantasy JRPG landscape. It's
Yeah.
usually this linear upgrade path of like, there's the
Yeah.
better one, throw the old one in the trash. There's the better
Right.
one, but this is really like you have, by the end of it, 7, 8, 9, 10 viable weapons,
Yeah.
Which
Which is good because they give you 16 weapon slots. So
Yes.
at least there's not 18 viable weapons.
I did hit a point where I was supposed to be picking up a dragon shield, and my weapon inventory was full.
Yeah.
And you can just trash extra armor items, but you
Right.
cannot trash weapons. You have to sell them at a shop.
Yeah. And some of the weapons still can't be sold.
Yeah, so I had to leave the entire dungeon, go all the way back to town, sell my old battle axe, and then come
Yeah.
back and pick. It was very annoying.
Yeah,
But again, this is the same
the
thing.
remakes added a separate weapon and armor inventory.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, no, in the original one, okay, so weapon and armor. Yeah, no, that
Yeah,
would be nice.
2
That-
separate
that is what
inventories
it
for
needs.
them.
In my head, I thought you were saying items and equipment.
Oh, no,
I was like,
no.
they already
Sep-
are.
Separate from the existing equipment inventory is split into 2.
But again, this means constantly pausing the game and going into the menu to
Yep.
change your weapons, and the
Oh, yeah.
menus are slow.
That was my biggest complaint with the game originally, is just how much time you have to spend navigating menus, and the menus are slow.
Magic is kind of the same deal as weapons a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You get a few different spells. You get a cure spell, which restores your HP. It's the first spell you
Yep.
get. Use it throughout the entire game.
That is the most useful spell.
You get sleep, which is a stupid spell. It's dumb, and I never used it. I don't think more than one time ever.
Yeah.
Heal cures all status effects, which is
Yep.
nice. Because there are moments where
Poison hurts fast too.
poison does hurt fast. My issue is when you get a status effect, and this is me jumping ahead in the notes, but when you get a status effect, one, there's a lot of different status effects. We'll go over them in a minute.
There's 4.
But they'll get piled on. And sometimes enemies will shoot magic at you, and they'll shoot 4 or 5 magic balls at a time.
Yep.
And the first thing they hit you with is stone. And then you're stuck there. And then you're getting hammered. Your health is getting lowered. Then you get poisoned. And then you get moogled.
Yeah.
And so heal comes in real handy in those situations where you're kind of
Oh, yeah.
stun locked.
Right.
Mute prevents enemies from casting magic. Also, pretty useless spell. It does kind of let you.
Can you use the heal spell while you're Moogled? I thought that spells were blocked while you were Moogled.
Spells and weapons are blocked while you're Moogled. Yeah, that's true. So I mean, it won't get rid of Moogle, but it'll get rid of any other status effect.
Also, there's an item that cures the Moogle status effect. But you can't use it while you're Moogled.
Is that what Unicorn does?
Yeah.
You don't get it till the very end of the fucking game, and you don't get Moogled there.
Yeah, and also you can't use it. Actually, I think the Unicorn Horn cures all status effects.
Okay.
But there was a specific Moogle item that was supposed to cure the Moogle status effect, but it's useless because you can't use it while you're Moogled.
You get a few attack spells. Fire is a homing attack. Ice turns enemies into snowmen, and you can control it while in flight, which is cool.
Yeah.
And there's
like a homing missile that a remote control missile.
Most of the game's dungeon puzzles revolve around you turning enemies into snowmen and then pushing them onto blocks.
Right.
And there's one dungeon puzzle real late in the game where you have to control the icicle through a maze, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
One of those in the whole game, just the one.
Now there's also what is the most frustrating room in the entire game to me every time that I play this game, which is a room where there's two wolves that are already on switches and you just have to freeze them.
Yes.
But your partner at the time just keeps fucking shooting them and killing them.
Yup. There's one where it's enemies on either side of a bridge, and you have to do snowmen on each side and push them on switches on each side, but you have to get the enemies on each side, and they're always up against the wall. I had to do that room 20, 30 times.
Oh, yeah.
You get Lightning Bolt and Nuke, which are basically the same thing. It shoots in a straight line. Nuke is obviously the stronger version because it's called Nuke.
Yeah.
And I'll say that the resource that by the end of the game, the only items I was carrying were keys and ethers. Because if I had ethers, I could heal myself. Nothing else mattered.
Yeah, that is the entire inventory late game is keys and ethers.
MP becomes paramount.
And there's, I think it's called Elixir in the original, but there's an item that ninjas will drop that is a full heal of both health and magic.
The ninjas drop the samurai armor rarely, and then elixirs a bunch of the time. I tried to get the samurai armor for probably half an hour, and it finally...
I got a first drop this play.
Oh, fuck you. It finally dropped, and I was so zonked out because I've been playing for so many hours in a row that I was like, all right, I'll go delete my old armor and then put this on. And I did it in the wrong order, and I literally just opened my menu, went down to samurai, and deleted the fucker. And a second I did it, I was like, oh, why? Like, I just autopiloted, deleted the rare armor drop. I was so mad.
Oh, that's sad.
I felt so stupid.
So there's a item, speaking of drops, and this is getting a little ahead of ourselves, but there's an item that you can get that is only used for one story event, and you trade it for somebody for some knowledge that is useless.
Yeah.
And
the bag of Fang.
Yeah, the Fang. And I thought that I would try to get it this time just to see if they had improved its drop rate at all.
Sure. Yeah, I went and got it.
And it took forever for it to drop. It took forever for it to drop. And when it finally did drop, I get on my Chocobo and try to go back to town to turn it in because I wanted to see if they had fixed the translation to make the tip that he gives you any more useful. And one, they didn't. And two, as soon as I got on my Chocobo, I glitched through the ground, fell out of bounds, and ruined my save file.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Status effects, you have poison that poisons you, stone that freezes you, dark darkens the screen, makes it hard to see stuff, and then Moog turns you into a useless Moogle. So we kind of talked about it.
I just ignore dark, and I just keep on going. I pretend like it doesn't even do anything because it doesn't.
Dark does, when you're in the dungeons with the ice puzzles on the floor, it can be really annoying. But other than that, it basically does nothing.
Just wait it out.
Now, on the original Game Boy screen, I imagine it was much more frustrating.
It was pretty frustrating, but I mostly played the game on an emulator at the time, so meh.
Yeah. But again, the magic system, I think it's cool. You get a few different spells. You kind of get to play every role within your own party. They have different useful, sometimes you want the homing attack of fire because enemies are fast. Sometimes you want nuke or lightning. They're used to solve puzzles. I think the magic system is cool. But again, you can only equip one spell at a time to the B button, which means every time you need a new spell, You have to go into the menu.
Yep.
And let's say you're out of mana and you need to cure. You have to open the menu, go to item, equip an ether, exit, use the ether, go back into the menu, go to magic, and then equip cure, and then cure yourself.
Yeah.
It's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
It's tedious.
Yeah, and there are also plenty of times where I will get so used to just having cure equipped because I have it equipped most of the time.
Yeah.
That I think I'm curing myself, and instead I'm wasting Maddox.
Yeah, or you're healing yourself.
Yeah.
Because heal is what does the status effects, and the thing looks similar, and you'd be like, I'm
Yeah.
not getting better, and then you die.
Right. Yeah.
This is one of my favorite features. Really, I like all these features. They're problematic, but I think they're all really cool ideas.
Yeah.
You get partner characters
Yes.
that show up, and they wander around with you, and they're AI controlled. This is crazy.
But they always, like, the way that they walk around the screen aimlessly always looks like they dropped their contact lens and they're trying to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to me that they just like roam aimlessly around the screen, lost,
Like-
ignoring all the enemies, ignoring you, and then occasionally they'll do something useful. I love it.
They
love
sort
the
of
way
exist
they roam around.
for their ask command. So in the menu, again, in the same menu, you can talk to them,
Mhm.
and each of them does different stuff. A couple of them heal you.
Yeah.
One of them
I put what each of them does here.
I don't want to go through all their names because I don't want to story spoil anything.
Okay.
But one of them near the end of the game gives you full MP, and that's like
Yes.
it's the best.
Yeah.
A couple of them are useless. One of them only cures stone.
Yeah.
One of them changes the music in the game, which is dumb and useless, but I think it's
Yeah.
just a cool. It's like a little Easter egg thing. You do get
Now-
a chocobo. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The mobile remake, which is also on Vita, by the way. So if you want to play it on a not phone or Android TV, you can play it on Vita.
Yeah.
But that remake adds a new button that is mapped just to use the ask command,
Oh,
so
that's
that you don't have
nice.
to go into a menu. It's so nice. It also adds hotkeys, so you can
Ooh.
set 3 items, either weapons, items, or magic, to a hotkey that as soon as you press that hotkey, it instantly equips it.
So Keymatic and Cure is what you put on
By
that,
the end of
right?
the game, I just had it on 3 different weapons. I had it on
Right, that's true.
mace,
Yeah.
mace, axe, and sickle, so that I could
Yeah.
just jump between them, and then I would have whip equipped so that I could then jump to mace, axe, or sickle at any time.
You do get a chocobo, and weirdly, I mean, I guess accurately, but also kind of weird for this game where there is no overworld. It's just sort
Right.
of the world. You're
Mhm.
invulnerable while you're on the chocobo.
Yes. Which
But
is so nice.
you have to get off chocobo to clear trees and rocks and
Right.
stuff. So you have to
Yeah.
ask to get on the chocobo, walk up to a rock, ask to get off, open
Yeah.
the menu, equip something that can smash the rock, smash
Right.
the rock, ask to get back on the chocobo, and then you're on your way.
And then encounter a tree, so then you have to do it again, but then you have to equip your
Yes.
axe.
And if you've been in a place, then when you exit the place, if you don't talk to your chocobo, he will stay in that
Yeah, he just
screen.
hangs out in that screen forever.
I was in the area where you have to go back across the ocean after getting
Oh, no.
something. And I went all the way back to the port before I was like, oh shit, I didn't talk to Chocobo. He didn't come with me. I had to go all the way back through the whole fucking overworld and get him.
I was
asshole.
confused playing the remake because they changed the chocobo from a boy to a girl in the remake. I don't know if that's a more accurate translation or not, but they kept referring to her as her, and I was like, "Oh, is a lady chocobo that I didn't see earlier? Oh, they're talking about my chocobo."
My Chocobo, yeah.
Yeah, I was very
Um,
confused coming from the old translation.
I do want to say, I want to mention the boss battles, which I think we'll kind of go through each of next episode.
Sure.
But I want to say the boss battles are really cool. They're huge. They're screen filling. Like all
Yeah.
the sprites are giant. They have lots of animation, lots of
Oh, yeah.
projectiles. They kind of range greatly in terms of difficulty. A
Mhm.
lot of them, like it's stand in this corner and they can't hurt you, basically, or alternate
Right.
corners.
And
Like
a lot of them
couple of 'em-
telegraph their attacks pretty
Yeah.
easily. So
some of them you just kind of got to brute force.
Right.
So I like that they've got sort of a mixture of sort of puzzly pattern recognition, but also just getting there and swing and heal really fast. Bosses.
they're all animated really well.
They look really good on the Game Boy.
Oh yeah,
And again, this is that era where like Metroid 2 had just come out.
Yeah.
I think it came out same month as this. I want to say it was also November 91, same month as this.
Mhm.
And so like Nintendo was just now figuring out that they could have big sprites on Game Boy
Right,
and it
yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Because for people that don't remember really early Game Boy games, the reason Super Mario Land looked the way it did is they shrunk all the sprites to be proportionally the same size as they would be
Right.
on a television, but on a
Yeah.
Game Boy.
Yeah.
They shrunk everything down, and
Yeah.
come to realize that's just kind of a bad way to go about it. You get tiny, shrunk, dinky-looking games,
Yeah.
and this is anything but dinky.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the bosses in this game. They were very cool, very Zelda-like again. But I did
also very
just
expressive.
want to mention
They-
them. Yeah, very
they just-
expressive, very cool.
Very cute looking.
You get to learn all their names after you've murdered them.
Yeah.
And some of them are really tough fights, even with companions. Because you take your companions into the fight with you.
And there are some just weird, awkward translations too, because Ifrit was grossly misspelled when you defeat Ifrit.
Is that what they were trying to fucking spell?
Yeah, I think it ended up being a fright or something.
It's Iflight, Iflyt.
That's
Yeah.
That's Ifrit.
Nope. Also, he's got a big booty and he sticks it up in
does
the
have a
air
big
whenever
booty.
he's in between his because he curls up in a ball and bounces
Yep.
around the screen, and then he goes
Yeah.
up there and twerks for a while at the top
yeah.
of the screen, and then
Hell
comes
yeah, he's
back
got
to
to show off.
attack you. He's totally nude and has his ass completely out and up in the air. It's very
Well,
weird looking.
If you had a donk like that, you'd want to show it off too, right?
But kind of transitioning into final thoughts here. I do want to say the systems in the game feel very old and very limited,
Right.
but the moment-to-moment gameplay of fighting enemies and finding items in dungeons feels very Zelda-like, except with actual leveling system.
Yeah.
So I ended up there was some magic here for me, right, that I found compelling. Both in I'll talk more about it next episode because of the story stuff, but just gameplay wise, someone in our Discord mentioned a week or two ago that many Game Boy games felt more personal. And I thought that was a really interesting way to describe how they feel and what I love about Game Boy games.
Yeah.
And I think, one, that is accurate. And two, this game hits that vibe of
I can see that.
you are mostly on your own. Occasionally you team up with someone, but it's very a focused journey on you and your character on this small screen.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of, it feels very personal compared to stuff like actual Final Fantasy games with full party members and stuff. And there's something really compelling about that really personal journey of this game that evokes some of that same magic that I get with Link's Awakening. Definitely in a less polished, more problematic package, much more limited game. Granted, it's also 2 years earlier and on an earlier memory mapper. I mean, it just literally had more physical limitations.
Yeah.
But I found the gameplay in this to be really fun. We didn't even talk about it, and I guess we should. I think the most frustrating thing, I got used to the menus. They didn't bother me by the end. It was the gameplay loop.
Sure.
What got me was characters and chests spawning.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because if a chest spawns and you can't pick the item up, then you cannot destroy the chest.
Right.
And if the chest spawned where you need to walk, you can't go there.
You just have to go to a different room and come back.
Going to towns is insanely frustrating because there's not a lot of screen real estate, and NPCs block your path again because the world is very cramped and you can't get around them, and you talk to them by walking into them.
Yeah, that is the best thing that they added in the remake is one, there's a talk button now. So you can walk into them without talking to them. Two, you can push people. And three, you can destroy chests by just attacking them.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time leaving and re-entering screens just to respawn the things there. So all this to say that the game is kind of fundamentally broken in a few different ways. It just does not function correctly.
It feels like it didn't get enough quality checks, if any.
But there is, on the gameplay front, still a really fun game here. Still some magic here that thankfully sounds like it's gameplay-wise at least been largely fixed by the remake. So if you're I don't know about this fucking shit, Justin, then I think the remakes are probably the way to go. Even the original game, I felt compelled by the gameplay, and it was fun and tactical and enjoyable the whole way through.
Yeah, it's one of those that's aged a lot better than I remembered. Even the original Game Boy version, because I did play some of that for this as well. Just to remind myself of some of the quirks and stuff on there. But it does have a lot of frustrating gameplay elements, like the menu and the townspeople and shit. but I think it's a testament to the gameplay that it's still fun in spite of all that.
For sure. Absolutely, for sure. It's again, it feels very personal. There's something there. And I don't know. I wonder if maybe I was a little more lenient with it than I would have been. Like if this was a Super Nintendo game, I'd be like, this is unfucking forgivable.
Right.
But something about it being a within the first couple of years original Game Boy game kind of makes me be like, yeah, they were still figuring it out, and they're taking bigger chances than a lot of other people at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
I think also just the scope and speed of the game helps a little bit too.
For
Like
sure.
If the game was longer or it had more towns or more fetch quests, I think
Yeah.
it would have overstayed its welcome.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it gets right down to it, and it's like, hey, you're there's like one, we'll talk about it next episode, but there's barely like one sort of fake out, like not fake out, but like that JRPG thing where you sort of hit the 2/3 mark when they're like, now you must go on this weird side quest thing to do this thing to then go finish the last third. But even then, there's only one, and while it is definitely the most tedious part of the game, it's not horrible. We're talking an hour or two of gameplay, you know.
Mostly breaking rocks.
It mostly breaking floating rocks with and then forgetting your fucking chocobo. God damn it.
You padded that one yourself.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I got some grinding in at the very least. I kept looking for a good grind spot in the game, and there really isn't one except for the last dungeon where you've got the person that gives you unlimited MP, and then that's
what's second to last dungeon?
Is it say? Oh yeah, it is. It's a dime tower. Yeah, which we'll talk more about next episode.
Oh boy.
Which you can listen to right now if you're on our Patreon.
Oh, sneaky.
Because we release these in little clumpies. They're clumpy episodes that come out because we
Never
record
say
them.
clumpies.
We release these clumpies for you. We
I
want
had
you
to pick
to
up some clumpies outside of my front door the other day.
We want
Somebody
you to
just left
enjoy
them
these
there.
clumpies that we've.
God.
That's forever what I'm calling episodes now. They're clumpies.
Gross.
Patreon.com/Retro Warriors to view all of our clumpies. We have many other clumpies like Talking Wizards and Read Along. And it's a good time. I feel bad mentioning either of those right now because we had to skip a Talking Wizards because I was out of town and I forgot to post Read Along. It's gonna be a day late. So, but yeah, if you're listening to that and you're not a patron right now, then you don't know that fuck up that I made. But the following patrons who did give us money are aware of it, and we want to thank them for their kind donations. Starting with not bear in a man suit.
I'm glad that clarified. And Dr. Jason Tharp,
Dane McMillan,
Dave Nelson,
Andy,
Michael Castro,
Poncho Man Randy Savage.
Kumatora from Mother 3.
Oh, so nice of them to show up.
Right?
Asher Abramowitz.
And Matt Stone.
They all gave us money, so they know that I forgot to post Read Along. It's going to be a day late. But maybe they didn't notice. Maybe nobody noticed. Maybe that's what happened. They're just like, we didn't even notice, Justin, until you said something.
Yeah.
So you all get to be.
You were going to get away with
retroactively-
it.
I was.
If it weren't for that meddling self-confession.
If it weren't for you meddling patrons. Anyway, yeah, next week we're gonna do, or next episode, we're gonna do the story and development of the game. So if you have not played the game, then you got a week.
Yeah.
You got a week to play it.
Or
And
if you're
then,
uncut, you have minutes. Go do it.
mere moments.
Yeah.
Sometimes I accidentally post the second episode first. I'm like, oh
Oops.
shit. I try not to do that, but it has happened before where I hit the wrong button in the wrong order.
Huh.
And it's almost like I'm bad at this. I don't know if anyone's noticed.
It's almost like we're amateurs.
It's almost like we really have no idea what we're doing over here. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening, and as always, let us cling together.